My name is Javan Carter. I'm currently the dean of instruction. That's the equivalent of an assistant principal at a charter school on here in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
I am in I'm going into my ninth year in education. I worked in
All right. So the first question is, have you ever been in a physical altercation with a student, or have you witnessed this happen?
yes,
Yes.
yes.
All right.
To both,
So,
to both questions, yes.
so, can you kind of describe kind of what you've seen, like the worst of it, like what lengths you see it go to?
It just depends. Like we have some kids, and this is like all based on their trauma, or sometimes how the weekend went, or sometimes based on like a disability that they may have. I don't really see it usually with older students in like where I've seen it. I always usually see it with students that struggle with emotional constancy, at the elementary levels and like the early middle school levels. And the worst that I've seen or witnessed was just, I mean, personally, I'm not going to speak for anyone else, but a kid borrowed or kid gave their glasses away to another kid and he went home early. And so, this is associated with this kid's disability. So he was so irate that the kid went home with his glasses that he felt as though that he would never get his glasses back, which was not the case because he received the glasses the next day. But, me trying to calm him down, he just was, grabbing a fire extinguisher, just swinging at adults, think pulling pictures down off the walls, things like that. And we had to restrain him. Like people that are trained, have to restrain students in that are being irate in that way because they can definitely hurt someone.
Okay. All right. So, the next question is, so we see a social media is bigger and bigger nowadays, and you see this stuff a lot on viral videos or fight videos that go on in the classroom and stuff. Does this stuff happen more often now? From what you've seen being in the school, is it more common than it was 10 years ago, or does it just seem like that?
Yes, it's definitely more common than it was 10 years ago, but I don't want to associate or correlate the physicality of students with social media because definitely social media was around 10 years ago. However, I think that COVID-19 has definitely impacted just the temperament, not only with kids, but definitely adults as well. And yes, but like just to answer your question in the beginning, just was like, yes, it has increased
It has increased. Okay.
tremendously over the last 10 years. Well, really within the last 2, 3 years, in my opinion.
Really?
Since yeah, since COVID.
Wow. So, what do you think is, and you kind of said this in the first question, but kind of go back over it again. What is causing all this hostility among students and teachers? What would you highlight as the main problem?
I think just trauma. I think it could be trauma related to, I know for instance, like one of my students, he would tell me, like, I just don't have a great relationship with my mom. She kicked me out. Haven't seen her in 6 months. Another situation would be, a kid lives with like that same kid. He lives with grandma, and her mother, and mom really wasn't involved until recently. So it just and during that time he was just up in arms of whether he's gonna live with mom or grandma, and then grandma and mom were beefing. So it just, kids love, like they see their parents and their families as superheroes, and when sometimes their families fall short, they can take on that emotional burden, and it can look like, a fight or being physical with a teacher at school. So it's definitely trauma. It's definitely emotional. It could be an emotional disability. Um, so it depends. It varies.
Okay. All right. And my next one, have you or someone else you work with ever felt unsafe because of a particular student? Have you ever any come across that? Have you ever heard any talks of like, hey, look out for this student, or have you ever felt uncomfortable at work?
Um, I would say yes and no. I think me just having a background, just like a wrestling background, and that I never really feel uncomfortable in playing ball in college. I never really feel uncomfortable getting in altercations with anyone.
Yeah.
But I think I feel really I think I felt uncomfortable restraining kids or calming kids down in that way because it's like they are irate. They are irate. I don't like being in that space and that mindset of having to physically calm you down to protect other people that may feel unsafe because I know a lot of some adults may feel unsafe around certain students. However, I think my uncomfortability just come from my own ecosystem of just not I don't like being physical unless I have to be or I'm paid to be. So it's not really
Yeah.
it's not in my DNA to be physical unless it's really time to be physical.
Okay. So, um, have you, what have you seen? Like, now you're an kind of administrator yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So you work with other admins and stuff like that. From what you've seen, do you
Mm-hmm.
think when teachers have problems or something that's been going on, escalating in the classroom, do you feel like teachers are getting the right support in that regard?
I think so. I think I believe that they are. From their feedback, they believe that they are. I I think that sometimes when it can be one or two students around the building, it can feel like teachers aren't supported with that one or two students. However, I just want to reiterate. I always reiterate to our families and our students, not just our students, but our families and our teachers that you know a lot of different a lot of our kids or some of our kids are coming from a lot of different places and backgrounds and ecosystems that they cannot help and that we got to literally love the hell out of them and that comes from being consistent with them that comes from being keeping your word that comes from showing up and it comes from also I think the uniqueness about our school is that we provide a lot of resources and to help our kids get those things out of their systems, to help our kids. And that doesn't mean that we use our adults as stepping stools and just a punching bag. That's not the case. However, I just think that, you know, when it comes to those kids that have those irate behaviors because they've seen their mother get molested or harmed or mistreated. That is, even though I don't agree with them being irate, I understand why they are because I think any one of us will be that way. We just had one bad day, and I think that you know, um, I think it answers your question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, my next one is what, like, just for okay, from a policy standpoint, from the policy, what how you're supposed to handle these things, and just from a, just a being a human, what can be done to prevent this type of stuff from happening in schools? Like, what can be done to prevent it?
Money, resources, programs. I think, I'm thinking of a program right now, like Parent University, where we partner with the parents on just, it could be just regular activities, just bonding activities with their sons or their kids. However, we could also give, you know, courses to parents on just how to, be emotionally constant because students mimic and copy their behaviors from what they see in their environment. And I think when you give the parents those coping strategies of how to calm down and how to handle their emotions, it's okay to have an emotion. However, you have to just be mindful of your reactions to your emotions and things like that. I think just the money and the resources that are put back into the community to make sure that we are taking these steps to making sure that kids aren't harming themselves or harming others. And I think I'm also thinking about myself in this particular set of just like I'm about to have my first child in September and like I know the resources that they give my girlfriend and I just aren't that adequate because a lot of people do not know how to teach adults how to deal with children. So like when they get children, they think that this 2-month-old is literally 25 and they're not. Like and I see a lot of adults just sometimes like take it out on kids. I'm like, you're trying to fight and argue with a 3-year-old. But they're not listening. They're not. I'm like, I understand that, but they literally are only been here for 36 months.
Hmm.
36 months. So it just, and that's not just a socioeconomic program that can help just a specific population. I think everyone can work on just how to interact with their child. And I think a lot of people just struggle with that. struggle with just understanding that that's a kid. Like that's a baby, that's a kid, that's a 10-year-old, that's a 12-year-old, and just how to understand and navigate life with a new child or a couple kids or navigating a child with a stepfather or stepmother and things like that. It's just a lot of programs and a lot of I'm not sure what you can do whether you give people a stipend or a tax credit for these courses or things like that, but it's just education. That's really what it is.
Okay. All right. So my last question is what should everyone do if they get in this situation? Say it's meet a boiling point and they're at a point of no return. What are and what is in the policies? How are teachers supposed to handle it once it becomes physical? How are teachers supposed to respond? How are they supposed to defend themselves? Well, what's your like? And of course, assuming against like kids that are bigger, not elementary kids or
Right, right.
against bigger, more of a physical threat.
Mm-hmm.
What is from what you know, what's like how are teachers expected to defend themselves, or are they not supposed to do anything at all?
Um, Call it adult. We don't condone you like our adults putting their hands on kids. I think just calling another adult, calling myself, calling the behavior tech, calling people that are actually trained. I think like sometimes when it comes to calming a kid down physically, it's just like not everyone knows how to do that without hurting themselves or hurting other people.
Mm-hmm.
Just about just body movement and bone structures and things like that. Not a lot of people are trained on that. They just
Mm-hmm.
I think when a student gets irate, they get irate. And the thing is, what you need to do is just calm yourself. Don't match your emotions with that emotion because you don't want to be a 39-year-old woman or a man matching your emotions with an 11-year-old. Like you don't stoop down to that level. Keep a level head. Call someone if you need help, and they will either escort or calm the kid down or restrain them if they need to be restrained. It's not all the time where kids need to be restrained, but
Yeah.
just talk. Sometimes even talking to kid. Not everyone has those skills to just talk a kid off the ledge in a sense, but those are the various strategies that we use to making sure that not only the kid is safe, but the adults are safe, and making sure that one way we want to make sure we protect our adults is do not put your hands on kids. We let that let that responsibility land on the professionals and the ones that can handle it.